welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hello, and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. Today, I'm joined by Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Welcome. We haven't spoken a while because we had a break for August, so it's great to be back on the mic again together.
It absolutely is. I've missed you.
Oh, I've missed our conversations as well, my dear. And today we're going to talk about mental health and how Ayurveda and yoga therapy can help bring the mind back into balance. And this is such an important topic, and I think it's a great time of year that we're discussing it now that we're in autumn. And the reason I say that is because we have the transition from summer now, the end of summer, into autumn or fall. And this is when the Vata dosha is high in nature. And that means that the qualities of the Vata dosha are in nature: dry, light, cold, rough, subtle, and mobile. So in most parts of the world, of course, it depends on where you live, but you may experience some or all of those qualities at this time of year. And we know in Ayurveda that as is the macrocosm, which is nature in this case, so is the microcosm, which is our body. And so that quality of Vata in nature, in the macrocosm, is going to cause an increase of the Vata dosha in our body. Therefore, if you have a high Vata constitution or if you're imbalanced in Vata, it could lead and possibly lead to a Vata imbalance. And this can lead to digestive problems, sleep problems, dryness, and mental issues as well. Many may experience fear or anxiety, nervousness, insecurity, restlessness, maybe confusion, maybe just feeling highly strung and possibly feeling a little bit down and depressed, because this time of year is all about change, and that can create a lot of uncertainty and uneasiness for people. Isn't that true, Amy?
Yes, I think it's so important for us to recognize that sometimes the external environment actually has such a powerful impact on us that it influences our mental state. And the seasons are such a powerful influencer. You know, when we look at the ancient Ayurvedic texts, it says that the seasons are one of the main determinants of your mental health. Right. And especially, as you said, going into the fall, that is the most unstable, fear-filled, anxiety-filled time from about, end of summer to, I would say February, where I live. I see people with a lot of mental health issues that are basically just high Vata.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I like to discuss this, mental health at this time of year, because, I've talked to a lot of clients recently who say that they feel uneasy and they're not aware that it's the climate causing that and their own imbalance causing that. And, as we get further into autumn and winter, it's a quieter time of year. Summer, we're out. We're, of course, the northern hemisphere where it's warm. We're more out. We're more social. And then comes autumn and it's more time of introspection, hibernation in nature, time of reflection, and the days get shorter. So as we go through that transition, it can be quite tough for a lot of people.
Yes, especially, as you said, if you have a Vata birth constitution or you have a very Vata-inducing lifestyle, or even if you're in the Vata stage of life after maybe 55, your Vata is going to be just naturally high. So those are the people that are most influenced by this. And I might also add that if you have a very strong kapha constitution or kapha imbalance, this time of year might be your best time of year because it's going to lighten you up and bring you a little more spaciousness and lightness. So it could be that you feel really good this time of year.
Exactly. And that goes on the principle of like increases like. So the vata, nature is increasing the vata in our bodies, but then opposites balance. So because the vata qualities of dry, light, subtle and mobile are the opposite to the kapha qualities of heaviness, sluggishness, and lots of liquid in the body, that therefore the opposites are balancing to kapha. So yes, the kaphas love this time of year, whereas for vata or those vata imbalance, or like you said, those in the wisdom age of life, in the vata stage of life, post-menopause, post-andropause, maybe feeling these signs of imbalance, and particularly mentally this time of year. So let's talk about what causes this. And I'd like to start talking about the agni, which is our digestive fire. And actually, we say it's the digestive fire, but it's actually the fire element in the body. And pitta and agni are the same thing. Pitta is like the container, and then agni is the energy, but it governs all transformation in the body. The main agni, like I talked about, the digestive fire, it's called the Jatara agni, and it's responsible for digestion, absorption, and assimilation of our food, which is turned into energy and that the body can use. So we know now, from listening to this podcast, that Ayurveda really focuses on digestion, and that the undigested food is the bedrock for disease physically and mentally in the body. It creates ama. It can affect not only the physical channels of the body, but the subtle channels of the body. But not only is agni in our body, it also appears in each cell. So the digestive fire is the main one, but it also appears in each cell and giving each cell awareness. So agni is our main source of life. It's our cellular intelligence. And the really interesting thing is that agni is also responsible not only for the digestion of food, which we're all very familiar with now, but also what we take in through our senses of sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell. All this sensory information is energy. Emotions and experiences are energy. And this has to go through the same digestive process as the foods, so that we digest these emotions, these experiences we have daily, to give us knowledge and understanding. But if we suppress or do not digest this sensory information, then it will cause confusion. It may cause a repression of emotions, and then that repressed energy will be stored somewhere in the body, and more than likely it will cause problems in the future, physically or mentally. So I think that's an important one to remember, that agni isn't, we always think of it with the food, but it's actually part of digesting our sensory experience as well.
I just want to reinforce that, because I think a lot of us don't realize that when we are out and about and receiving a lot of stimulus through the five senses, that we need to get into our parasympathetic nervous system to rest and digest after an event like that. So I just got home from Korea.
Yes.
And I planned, 2+ days in my schedule to lie in bed and digest the experience, which was wonderful. Yeah. It was a fantastic experience, but all the same, it needed some time to get digested in my system. So I think that's a great point that you're making.
Yeah, and I find that too. If I have a big night out, or if I'm at an event, there was a lot of concerts, music concerts here during the summer, the next day or a couple of days, I have to have retreat day. I literally have to withdraw and just rejuvenate myself. And we do have to be really aware of what we expose our senses to, what situations we're in, who we're hanging out with, what we're watching, what we're listening to. What we're obviously ingesting into our body, what we're smelling, all that affects our mental and our physical health.
Exactly. Just like poor quality food will cause ama, or waste in the body, poor quality experiences, poor quality relationships will also cause ama, or waste in the body. And waste can be physical waste, mental waste, emotional waste, or even spiritual waste that kind of get stuck in the tissues.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to go on talking a little bit more about Agni, because it's in relation to what you just said there about the waste. Agni also brings a mental clarity, and it provides buddhi, which you've mentioned before, Amy, on the podcast, which is like the reasoning capacity of the mind. It's the logical thinking or discrimination. But if Agni is imbalanced, it can result in what's called buddhihara, which causes a lack of discrimination and inability to make decisions. So really, decision-making is a function of Agni, along with a balanced Agni giving us courage to move forward. So I thought, this is just so fascinating that this cellular fire that's in every cell of our body can have such an impact on our emotions. So a balanced Agni will give us the courage to deal with problems in our life, as well as clarity on how to resolve them. But if our Agni is out of balance, it will create fear and anxiety that we talked about, that those signs of imbalance, particularly in the Vata dosha.
Right. And, for all of those people who aren't really trained in Ayurveda that are listening out there, it's those days you just feel off. You don't know why. You don't have any particular reason. You feel generalized anxiety disorder, or you just feel like you can't make a decision. I mean, that is the result of what we're talking about. And if that's happening, you know that your agni, or your digestive fire, both, on the cellular level as well as the metabolic level, may not be functioning well. And there's some things that we can do to bring that agni back into balance. You don't just have to suffer like that.
No, exactly. And I'm giving these points on Agni right now because I want to really reinforce how important it is for everything. It's not, just, I have some bloating and I have some excessive gas or gurgling in my stomach. You can see now that this Agni, this fire element in the body, is responsible for so many things. I just talked about the courage to move forward. So you go from buddhihari, where it's this lack of inability, this brain fog, inability to make decisions, and then a balanced Agni will give you that courage to move forward. I just want to mention a couple more points about Agni, and then we can get into, how do we solve this problem?
Yeah,
but
keep
Agni,
going. I love it.
Agni also, a healthy Agni also promotes happiness and contentment in life. So it's like those sattvic qualities we talk about, those balanced qualities. But if it's abnormal, it can bring unhappiness, it can bring grief, sadness, and like I said earlier, depression. I mentioned depression in relation to a Vata imbalance earlier. Because what happens is Agni governs the secretions of the neurotransmitters responsible for our perception from our sensory organs and therefore our understanding. So what we take in through our sense organs, we're responsible on our sense organs for taking in the information around us. That buddhihari, that lack of discrimination, can be giving us the wrong information, which then in turn can result in grief or unhappiness or sadness or possible depression. So the Agni there is, because it's governing the secretion of the neurotransmitters, it's really responsible for how we see our world. So
I like to describe it as the world is fine, everything's good out there, but you've put on these really dark glasses. You've put on sunglasses, so now everything is colored by your sunglasses. And it doesn't mean that what you're seeing is reality. You're seeing a very dark, cloudy day when really the sun is out. And so what I hear you saying is that if your Agni is not balanced, your neurotransmitters are whacked out, and it's like you have sunglasses on and you just can't see the perfection of reality, and therefore you're not happy or content.
Right, absolutely.
I also think part of discrimination is to be able to see where it is that we have no business going, where we're not well matched, and do that without a lot of emotion, just to be able to have the discrimination to let go and say, this is not for me, and not feel disturbed by that. Right. So, discrimination isn't just, everything's wonderful. There is an element of sharpness or cutting what's no longer needed.
Yes.
But there's not a lot. If you truly have good agni, there won't be a lot of sadness around it. It will just kind of be a fact, like, okay, that's not a good match.
Yes, because you'll have that clarity. And it's not saying that it won't hurt in the moment. Right. And we've talked about this in other podcasts together, that, to feel into that and to digest that emotion. Because if you just, cut something out of your life or someone and you suppress those emotions that we talked about earlier, that will be, this energy is going to be repressed in the body. So it is important to feel it, but I think, yes, with a balanced agni, you will have the clarity to see that it's necessary. You'll also have, you won't get caught up in the emotions, that it will be a smoother transition to getting over that episode.
Exactly.
Some other couple of points here is that a balanced agni gives us vitality and zest for life. So finding joy in the simple things that we talked about, in things like nature and animals and simple whole foods, nourishing foods, and children. So this is why, we see that sometimes we see the most successful people, or what we deem the most successful people in life, who seem to have it all. And these are the people who seem to be very unhappy. Like we think of the stars who are, who have suffered from problems of addiction and so on. And then we see people who we would consider poor, and they can be so enthusiastic for life. And, it's this irony, but it's the fact that a balanced agni also gives us that contentment in life, that patience, trying to live in the moment rather than being impatient and rushing through life and always looking to the future or being driven and competitive. That it's a more of a being in the moment, seeing the beauty in the simple things and appreciating the simple things.
Yes, and I'd also like to say that when you have a balanced agni, you really have the discrimination to say, how much more do I really need? Mm-hmm. I have a house, I have clothes, I have food, I have a wonderful family around me. What else do I really need? Do I have to make millions and millions of dollars to be happy? I don't think so.
Exactly. It's like that fog is lifted. And right. You can really see, you have the discrimination to see what's right and what's right for you. And you have the courage to make those decisions for yourself rather than just following the crowd.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And one of the final points I want to make here is that Agni is also responsible for the subtle senses of Ojas and Tejas. Now, I did a whole episode on Ojas, Tejas, and Prana a while ago. But it is responsible for the creation of Ojas, which is our immunity, it's our strength, it's our vitality. And the Ojas is the product of a healthy digestive system. And when it's plentiful, it really promotes mental and physical strength. But when it's out of balance, there may be memory problems, there may be a lack of compassion, a lack of love, a lack of empathy. There could be a breakdown in communication between the cells, and that can really result in unresolved sadness or maybe mental fatigue or confusion. So what I'm getting at here is that people who feel these emotions and they're wondering why they have them, it can be, obviously it's related to, now we know, the agni, the digestive fire and all the agni in all our cells. But that this can be the reason why you may be feeling this unresolved sadness or this mental fatigue or this confusion.
100%. And I don't think, in the Western way of viewing things, I don't think we are nearly as advanced as Ayurveda to really understand that all the information your senses are bringing in must be digested. And if it's not digested well, you're going to have low ojas, which is going to impact your vitality, your ability to love and have empathy and compassion. I mean, that's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And ojas is that, it's the refinement of the digestive process. So if our digestive system goes through all these processes, the tissues takes what they need. It's like a little oil refinery, and the ojas is the final product. it's pure gold, as it were.
Right.
It's the end of, after all those that digestive tissues have taken their parts, it's the absolute refined pure gold, pure ojas. So it's so important.
I just want to say that most of us are so overly committed and doing so much and overstimulated in this, Western lifestyle that we live. Mm-hmm. And it's not hard to understand that with so much coming at us from everywhere, from the internet, from all over the world, that we wouldn't be able to refine all of that and digest all of that and end up with that ojas gold, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just too much. If you think about people 100 years ago and what they had to digest through their senses, I'm going to guess it was way less than what we have coming at us right now. So it's no wonder that we all have low ojas and therefore less empathy, less compassion, more confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. And this feeling of this mental fatigue. We're absolutely decision overloaded and just this confusion of not knowing where to go next. So, what I want the listeners to take away from this is that the more you focus on yourself, what you have in, coming into your senses, that you really need to take charge of this and really need to have awareness around what's coming in to your body and your mind, and start making some decisions that's going to benefit you and your health. Because I also want you to know that it's everything that's affecting you. It's not just what you're eating.
Right. I mean, I limit myself to 10 minutes of news a day because it's just too overwhelming and distracting. Yeah. So I look at the highlights, make sure I haven't missed, anything really significant, and then I move on into my day and I try not to look at it. And another strategy might be with your emails. Yeah. You check your emails between, say, 9 and 10:30 in the morning, and then you don't do it until the next day. You don't keep going back and going back. Same with Facebook, same with all the social media. Set a time, check it out, but try not to overstimulate all day long on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And checking the emails at a certain time of day is a great idea. It might take people a while to get used to you not getting back to them straight away, but they'll see a pattern and they'll figure out, oh, she's going to answer me in the morning.
Right.
So, you're in control of that. And I think that there are great tips to do, because you really have to make sure that all this multitasking that we're doing throughout the day is certainly driving our mind very vata, is really driving that vata out of balance, because we're just hopping from one thing to another.
Right.
And I also mentioned tejas, and in that previous episode, I went into detail about tejas, but it's basically our radiance, our courage. But when tejas is aggravated, it actually burns away the ojas. So it reduces our immunity, and this can result in the autoimmune disorders, but also can result in stress and nervous disorders. So it can really affect the nervous system. And it can overstimulate prana activity as well. So a lack of tejas can really result in an obstruction of the flow of prana throughout our body, also just sluggishness in the body, and it can really affect our confidence. It can affect the luster of our skin, of our hair, and make us feel unmotivated and just lacking in energy as well. Did you have anything to say on tejas before I move into my last?
I just, we think of luster and radiance and courage and high tejas as all these wonderful things, but I do think it's interesting to think that it can be too much. And in our goal-oriented society, we say yes, yes, yes to every single thing that comes at us, and that's courageous. But again, it's not discriminating. Right. What is for me? What is not for me? Yeah. What am I well suited for? Is this a good match? And learning to say no. Yeah.
And this is where I think it comes to understanding your true nature and being really certain about what you want and where you're going. And then those decisions become a lot easier to make. But it's really, first of all, understanding you, your true nature, your passions, and going on that journey first. And then I know from my own experience, and then it makes it really easy to say no to what's not in alignment with you. And some things may sound great, but it's not it's not part of your journey, or it's not where you want to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's signs. There's like this resistance, like, it doesn't quite feel right. And a little bit of insomnia where your mind is trying to chew on it all night long. I mean, these are things we need to pay attention to. They're subtle.
Right.
But don't just bulldoze your way through thinking, I just had a bad night's sleep. Step back and meditate and reflect and say, what was that about? Why am I feeling this sense of unease about this decision?
Absolutely. Yes, your body will talk to you. It could be that your heart rate will go up, your sweaty palms. You'll just have this uneasy feeling.
And that basically means something's undigested.
Right. Exactly. And our body talks to us before our brain can even figure out what's going on a lot of times. So it's that, and take note of that initial reaction. It's a very good point to make. So the last point I want to make here is in regards to agni is prana, right? Our life force energy. And agni, it creates optimal prana. And we've talked about prana a lot. When the flow of prana or life force in our body is low, we can become weak physically and mentally, lacking vitality, lacking enthusiasm and curiosity. It comes with that foggy mind, dull senses. And we can also, when it's excessive also, it can result in a loss of mental control. So it's interesting, when it's too much, it can cause things like ADHD, learning and behavioral problems, feeling restless, ungrounded, stressed, feeling alienated, or losing our sense of identity. So that's when prana is too much. And again, that would be related to that vata, that excessiveness. Of course, when prana is sattvic, we feel creative, we're inspired, we're optimistic. So obviously we all want to experience this optimism, this courage, this clarity of thinking when our agnis are in balance. And the good news in Ayurveda is that there's a clear path to do this. It takes some guidance from a professional and some discipline on the client's part, but it starts with the consultation. It starts with understanding your true nature, your birth constitution, and then understanding, well, what foods are best for your constitution, what exercise is best, what type of lifestyle, what type of routine. And that begins a self-study and getting more in touch with your body. And also in a consultation, the Ayurvedic expert will see if you have a current imbalance. And that imbalance can be addressed through a digestive reset cleanse. And that's the great thing, is by doing a cleanse, you're focusing on that main fire, that yathara, the digestive fire. But when you focus on that and bring that back into balance and restore the balance, that then affects all the other fires in the body, because of course it's all connected. So by doing a cleanse, by doing a whole reset, you can affect both the body physically and mentally. And that's the great thing about these digestive reset cleanses, that you're really hitting the reset button. You're unpacking any of the fat-soluble toxins, the emotional, the physical toxins stored there, and you're letting the prana flow again, and you're getting all these benefits of optimal prana, of optimal ojas and tejas, and the fires are strong again, and you have that glow, and you have that good, efficient digestive fire, and then that has a ripple effect throughout the body. So if you are interested in doing something like this, I offer them online. I'll put a link in the show notes to my consultations, and I do private cleanses throughout the year, and I also do seasonal cleanses. So you can check out the link in the show notes for that. And now, Amy, I know you have some tips also from yoga therapy.
Right. And I think a lot of that work requires an Ayurvedic practitioner to help you see who you really are, see what your birth constitution is, see what lifestyle choices are not serving you. Mm-hmm. I know that through my work with my Ayurvedic practitioners, I have learned so much about myself. And I think doing that work with Ayurveda is kind of a precursor to the work that we do in yoga or yoga therapy, mm-hmm. which is more subtle.
Yes,
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with the mind and the rajas and the tamas and the sattva qualities of the mind. So that's where I'd like to kind of focus my talk, is that Patanjali has this beautiful system of Raja Yoga to help us bring our mind into balance. But that's very, very difficult if our body is completely out of balance, right?
Exactly.
So that's why I say sometimes I think getting in balance with Ayurveda is almost a precursor to this more subtle work of the mind. And the subtle work of the mind is going to be looking at your obstacles. What is it that's in your way? You know, Patanjali lists 9 obstacles. It might be, you know, something around the realization that you're even suffering. So many of us just go through life and do our thing and bounce around like a ping pong ball.
Right, and think that stress is normal.
Yeah, like, oh, everybody works 12 hours a day, and then you go to another country and you realize, no, they don't, and they also take 6 weeks off.
Yes.
Right? So even the realization that you're having, that insomnia is not normal, that high blood pressure is not guaranteed at age 55, that depression is not normal, and just throwing some pills in you to try to, you know, get rid of the depression is not always the answer.
Right.
So, you know, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is asking us to look at these types of things. Another thing is the kleshas, the causes of suffering.
Yes.
Are you having fear? Are you having aversion? Are you having attachment? Are you overly identified with how you look or how your image in the world? So Patanjali gives us all of these beautiful paradigms to look at ourselves and do that self-reflection. When we do the work in yoga therapy of balancing the mind, we're looking at all of these types of things, and we're looking at, why is it that my mind is in rajas? Rajas meaning overly stimulated, jumping around like a little monkey from tree to tree, unable to focus, maybe overly goal-oriented, always have an agenda, what's in it for me and mine, just kind of that, almost like an aggressive type mind, right? So that's rajas. And really looking at, what are the causes of that? How is that showing up in my life? What are the manifestations or the outcomes that happen when I move through life in this way?
Right.
Is this, you know, the person I want to be? And ultimately, what are the disease patterns that go with rajas, like heart disease, like diabetes, when we maintain rajas over 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 years? That the mind and the state of mind actually ends up driving the disease patterns in the body. And so then Patanjali goes on to talk about the guna quality of the mind called tamas, which we associate more with kapha, dosha. And, you know, tamas is lethargic and dull and heavy and kind of the opposite of rajas. And so there's a lot of tools and technologies that we have in yoga therapy to either lift up the tamas, you know, kind of lighten it up and pacify it a bit. And we also obviously have tools and technologies to bring down the rajas. So, you know, the imbalanced states are these opposites of rajas and tamas. And basically we're pacifying, or we're bringing the rajas and tamas down. And when we do that, we get more into balance, and what we are left with is what is called a sattvic mind, where you have a balanced mind, you're not overreactive, you have good powers of discrimination, you see things clearly, you do have compassion and empathy, just naturally kind of emerges from a sattvic mind. You don't have all those attachments and aversions and fear. And I would say you're able to live in the moment and have contentment in the moment. So, you know, the goal through yoga therapy and through Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is to cultivate sattva by reducing rajas or tamas or both. You know, sometimes, I mean, the sad thing is we can be out of balance in two directions at the same time. We can be lethargic and agitated, which is a terrible place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. In yoga therapy, if we'll start with rajas and then go to tamas. So for rajas, would you do like Shatali cooling breath, a slower practice?
Yes. So to bring the rajas down, we would do all sorts of cooling, calming, grounding, slowing down type things. So if you were doing asana or postures, you might move to a 6-second inhale and a 6-second exhale breath count. You would do more floor postures. You would do things that kind of fold into yourself, like a twist or a forward bend. You would, bring yourself down instead of up.
Right.
The pranayamas would be exhalation-based pranayamas and cooling pranayamas, like you said, shitali, things that are soothing and calming and cooling. And then the same thing with meditations. We would do meditations on water and the moon and stay away from things like the fire or the sun as an object of meditation. We would really try to just make you feel nourished. Maybe a jungle, a big green, juicy jungle would be a nice, cooling object of meditation or visualization.
Great. And then for tamas, you would be increasing the heat?
We would increase heat. We would increase movement in our postures. We might do things more like vinyasa flow type postures, more standing work, more heat building, more focus, attention, like standing balancing poses, more back bends that are kind of opening up your prana vayu, maybe some nice lateral bends. We would do more heating pranayamas and more pranayamas that require focus. So things like nadi shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, even a wonderful one is called pratiloma ujjayi, which is a very difficult pranayama because it requires so much focus. Things that are going to build a little heat in the body, maybe some surya vedana type thing.
Okay.
And then, objects of meditation would be things like the fire or sun or even I've given things like a bird that flies, things that are going to lift you up and make you lighter.
Exactly, yeah. Really important to get out of that inertia of tamas, but it can be hard to start it, which is where we need that rajas fire to come in and give us a kickstart, because if you're very much in tamasic quality of mind, just getting that initiative going to get started can be so hard.
I think this is the hardest thing that I deal with as a yoga therapist is when I have a student or a client that has a very tamasic mind and they've got those dark sunglasses on and everything is negative and complaining and painful and I can't do it and I won't be successful and why bother? Whew, that's the hardest thing to deal with, to motivate them.
Yeah, but the fact that they're there in front of you means that there's something driving them. Like they made that even, I mean, for me, for most people, even to have the clarity of mind, if they're so tamasic that they wouldn't even think of that they need support or help or to make an appointment. But the fact that they're actually sitting in front of you is, a little bit of rajas in itself, that they're moving forward a little bit. They're obviously, it's interesting to see that because then their tamas is still holding them back and pulling them back, even though they made a step forward. Now they're still not going with the flow. They're kind of retarding themselves. Right. Yeah.
And, in the Yoga Sutras, it says just because someone has some eagerness to make a change doesn't mean they're ready to make a change. Right. So unfortunately, they're suffering. They know they need to do something, but they aren't necessarily strong enough to actually take action. And that's where the student-teacher relationship comes in. And they may need support and they may need external motivation until they can kind of get their own mojo going.
Right. And for me, I would see that, like we talked about, for them to understand what's causing it, first of all, so they have the education around, oh, I'm feeling this because of that. And then I would always say working on the digestive fire, first of all, because that's going to have an effect on all the other fire or agnis in the body.
You know, I just said yesterday that I want to go to India for 3 weeks and do a panchakarma because it's really hard to reset in the life that we've established for ourselves at home. All the same foods, the same patterns, the same family members asking if you want pizza, you know.
Right.
It's very difficult. I think especially if you're really stuck in tamas, it's a good idea to consider going away for your reset and having people make your food and serve it to you so that you don't have a choice, and don't bring chocolate in the suitcase. Don't do it.
Yeah, I wish we could all get away for 3 weeks and do that, because that is amazing. But then the reality is, and I highly recommend it if you can, if you do have the opportunity. That's what I did when I went to Bali, and that reset everything for me. But if you can't, you know, a problem with that then is you have to come back to your life. Right. And then it's like, then that's when the healthy habits and the behavior change that we talked about in another podcast come in. So yeah, there has to be a lot of discipline, and there has to be a real mindset shift going into something like this. You know, starting with, okay, I'll do the cleanse, and then, okay, now I'm going to, you know, focus on who's in my peer group, who am I exposing myself to, or now I'm going to focus on adding yoga and adding the meditation in, and taking your time with it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, yes, the sattvic diet is really important. Be careful what you're putting into your body, because what you put into your body becomes your cells and tissues. And if your, you know, body is not going to recognize those highly processed foods, they're just going to be creating ama or in the body, which is going to result in tamas. So it's really important to make good food choices, which can be hard, of course, then when you have a lot of tamas mental quality, that you're just going to be drawn to that fast food, that comfort food.
Well, and I would argue that having a sattvic diet is probably the biggest influencer on having a sattvic mind. And the modern research is starting to show that you actually have huge colonies of bacteria in your gut. We call this the microbiome. And within 3 days of changing to a healthy sattvic diet, the microbiome, these colonies of bacteria, completely shift to act in a new way in your body. Yeah. And you feel different. You feel more content. You feel happier. You feel stable in the mind. You feel compassionate and loving. It's amazing how changing your diet will change the microbiome, which heavily influences your mind. And I would argue that if we have a poor diet, it's almost impossible to have a sattvic mind because of the microbiome.
Absolutely. And the GI tract, or our gut, has been called our second brain now, because it's 30 feet long. It's responsible for 70 to 80% of our immunity. And if we're not feeding it with the right seasonal foods, which is important too, change our diet with the season so that we can get the bacteria in there from the fruits and vegetables of that season, because that's how we are designed to eat seasonally. It's so important, because there's a network of hundreds of millions of neurons that's going back and forth between the brain and the gut. And it's responsible for our production of serotonin, the feel-good hormone, and it regulates our happiness and mood and all the other cellular communication that goes on between. I think, Ayurveda talked about this and yoga talked about this, but modern science is now, just proving, or in research, that there is this gut-brain connection, and that, the GI tract is not only responsible for our digestion, but it's also the core of our immune system and also how we feel. The cells in the gut lining produce like 95% of the serotonin in our bodies. That's huge.
That's huge.
And nerve cell growth and, alerting our immune system to germs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing all these beautiful studies now on the microbiome and anxiety, microbiome and depression, even schizophrenia.
Yeah.
They're saying that if you change the gut microbiome to be a healthy colony, that the symptoms of even things like schizophrenia change.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because if we have these, we have these chemical messages going back and forth between the brain and the gut. So when our body is in stress, the brain sends warning messages to the stomach, which will result in, digestion problems. But also the other way around. When our gut is upset, it sends messages to the brain that can negatively affect our moods and even affect our mind. And like you said, with mental disturbances. So we really need what we put and what we digest in our body is key, because if we're taking in something that the body doesn't recognize, it's just going to be sent to the liver and stored as toxins, and then the body is overloaded with all these toxins, which then results in, the bacteria getting not being happy at all and letting you know mentally and physically.
And this is where I see Ayurveda and yoga therapy just going beautifully together. I'm imagining, Ayurveda with an arrow to yoga therapy with an arrow to Ayurveda, kind of a circular diagram where your body is in balance through the microbiome and all the things we're talking about, and your mind is impacted, but also having a clear, calm, alert mind helps you to discriminate and make better lifestyle choices to take care of your body. So that yoga and Ayurveda, yoga therapy and Ayurveda are just beautiful sisters that work together.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh no, it all goes hand in hand, and that's why they're sister sciences. And we talked about other ways to help your body and your mind, and of course living in tune with the circadian rhythms, and also spending time in nature. When we take time out of our hectic lives to just go to the park, on a hike, go for a swim, whatever it is, it just makes you remember that, okay, things are going to be okay. You get that healing energy from nature, and it takes you out of your own world, which we can get caught up in so much in these little stresses, and makes us realize that when we look at our life as a whole, this is, this too shall pass, whatever it is that's bothering you. But if you do have the unfortunate circumstance of having some mental health issues, that you do really take a look at your diet and your lifestyle, and like we said, what you're exposing your senses to.
Absolutely.
Which covers everything.
Right. And then, as I was saying with yoga therapy, looking at your habits and your patterns, looking at the obstacles in your life, looking at how it is that you're realizing that you're suffering, looking at your kleshas, really using yoga philosophy as a paradigm to understand yourself and to feel better, through this greater self-awareness and ability to change directions or make trajectories changes,
Yeah, and there has to be that, absolutely. And I think there has to be that desire, right, that we talked about. And unfortunately for a lot of people, it doesn't come until there's a lot of health issues, physically and mentally. But I think that, our body definitely gives us signals. But the earlier we start on this path, like we said, maybe starting with a cleansing your diet, bringing in more sattvic foods, bringing in the yoga, the meditation, the pranayama, then having a look at, your life in general and what's serving you and what's not. And of course your habits, which is huge, because that's part of the reset. We need to look at the habits and the behavior patterns so that you don't go back to that way of life. But yes, it's a journey. It's a wonderful journey. And it's, our body's a temple, and our body's amazing, and we're still science is still discovering how it works, which is incredible, that we don't quite understand how it all works. But we definitely want to be treating our body with huge respect and giving it all the all the nourishment and the safety and the protection and the vitality and the creativeness that it needs. So we can't just have one on switch and just work and keep just going, driving forward. We need to have times for reflection and creativity and fun and definitely finding more of that balance in life.
I could not agree more. And so I think the work that you do with helping people to do cleanses and to reset and to understand their body-mind system better so that they can get back to their fullest potential is completely connected to mental health. And I think the work that I do around offering yoga therapy for mental health training programs is right up this alley too. So,
yes. Tell us about that.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a 7-month program where there's a 9-day module that we, get in depth about yoga therapy for mental health. And then we meet online for 1 hour a week to go over case studies each week. And then we finish with another 9-day module. So the whole program takes seven months. And it's a lovely program. The thing is, mental health is such an important thing in our society today, and it's being ignored, and all of the consequences of people having poor mental health are showing up daily in the news. So for me, I can't think of better work to be doing in this world than the work that you and I have chosen, because I think mental health is not well supported in our healthcare system, and there's even some pushback against it, like, oh, you don't need that, or this insurance company doesn't want to pay for that, or you have to pay out of your pocket for a psychologist kind of thing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's not taken as seriously as our physical health, where we can just go to a doctor at any time if we have insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. It is crazy, because our physical and mental health, as we talked about, the gut-brain connection, it goes hand in hand.
Right.
One thing of the mental affects the physical and vice versa. And I think that, with the journey of yoga therapy and Ayurveda, that it's a journey of self-realization. And, we start with the basics. We start with fixing our digestion and then bringing in these healing processes of yoga therapy and meditation, pranayama we talked about. But really, it's a path that we talk about, self-realization. It's this path towards getting to your true nature and understanding what it is that you are ultimately here for. And I think until we realize that, there is going to be this feeling of unfulfillment within us. There's going to be this feeling of maybe sadness that we're not living to our full potential, because we are here, I think, to each of us be of service in our own way. And to find that passion within us and to uncover it, and that comes through, practicing Ayurveda, practicing yoga therapy, and you will uncover that. And then when we're living in our true nature, when we're following our passion and bringing that out into the world, that's when we really have that contentment for life, that that sattvic mind and sattvic body.
I love it. I love it.
So before I forget, can you tell me when your yoga therapy for mental health course starts, or is it ongoing?
The next batch starts in January. Every January we start a new batch.
Okay, perfect. Okay, January, and it goes through July.
Yes.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And then, as you know, I've talked about it several times, I provide the cleanses, seasonal cleanses. We have one starting September 27, 2018, but I do them privately throughout the year, and the daily habits for holistic health course for your behavior patterns. So Amy and I are here to support you if you're ready to take that journey towards self-realization, and I'll put all the links in the show notes. So Amy, thank you so much. That was great. I think it's a very important topic. I think that a lot of times people feel like it's normal to have this stress, or they feel unsupported with their mental health issues. And it's a hard conversation to have with those close with you. So it's nice to be able to reach out to, people working in this area like yourself or myself, and so that they know that they can be supported and understood, and meet a compassionate person who's going to help them and guide them, onto
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Amy, it was a pleasure as always. Thank you so much, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, take
Have a great
care.
day.
All right, bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Amy, and please check out the show notes for the links to Amy's course, to my upcoming seasonal cleanse, which starts September 27th, 2018. And of course, I do private cleanses throughout the year, but you can just click on the link in the show notes. It'll bring you to my website and you can check out what's coming up. And I also have that Daily Habits for a Holistic Health course to change your behaviors as well. So lots of support there between myself and Amy that you can check out. Until next time, take good care of yourself and be well.